All right, so most of our updates that we've been doing obviously has been on our Instagram at rsr.works. So that's where most of our updates have been, but I think it's kind of getting to the point now where there's quite a bit that I want to talk about, and it might be a little bit too much for the Instagram stories. So I thought I'd start doing sort of like a vlog style thing. That way, people that want to see a little bit more detail about certain things like the cars or whatever, they can follow it along a little bit easier. So from obviously a recording media perspective as well, it's a bit easier with the gimbal and the camera and whatnot to get a little bit more detail as such. But anyhow, so I guess, where we've started off, there's obviously a lot that's happened up until this point. So in and throughout, we'll try and do some more features on, how we got to where we're at now and everything like that. But where things have just happened so quickly that it's eventuated that this is where we're at now. So I thought I'd do a quick, a video about where we're at so far. So obviously there's quite a inventory of cars here, but the most recent one, or the one that's happening now, is the E28 525E. So yeah, we knew we had a good variety of cars and stuff like that to do our work on, but we felt like it was just missing that the German bit, because anybody who's been around old timer BMW, especially like the shark nose era stuff. There's truly nothing like it. Like, I really like the late 80s into 2000s, like E39s, E46s and that sort of stuff. They're really, really cool as well. I find like they've really found their stride in that era. But the vintage shark nose stuff is just like, it's just mega. So, myself and Simon, we've been talking about needing something like this to fit, I guess, the portfolio, if you want to call it that. And we thought, let's get something. And the opportunity came up for this particular car, which was a one owner, since new. Despite the newish plates, it has been it was originally registered to his name, full books, full history, the whole deal. So I guess this is what you call a survivor, or a barn find even. It spent the last couple of years in his garage. He would drive it maybe once a month or so. That's how it ended up. He had a couple of health issues that developed recently, and so they decided to downsize and move closer to their kids. And in order to do that, they needed to sacrifice a garage space. And so, because that was the case, he couldn't afford, I guess, to have the space to have the car stored in. He wasn't driving it that often, so he thought, oh, look, it's time to move it on. It's just like, in amazing condition for its age. It does have some mechanical niggles, but those kind of mechanical problems are more over from it being, not driven as often as it should be. You start getting oil build-up and grime and stuff, and this particular one is a 525E. So the 525Es, they have the ETA, or the economy engine, but they're still an M20, and anybody who knows this era of BMW know that the M20s make a little bit of noise as it is anyway. So this one has some pretty significant lifter tick, and it has a seeping rocker cover gasket, which again, very typical of this sort of car. We're gonna work on. Well, I'm going to work on today, because I'm a lone wolf today. Probably can't see a great deal there, but going to work on the valve cover gasket and the valve adjustment. That way, it's a little bit nicer to drive. I don't have to worry about it, because even though it's probably not doing a great deal of damage, it just doesn't sound nice, and it's a bit cringe, And I prefer to have the car in good health and running in good order. It has a little bit of a idle hunt, but again, I think that might be relevant to it could be the valve adjustment that's affecting it. A couple of oscillations in whatever is probably what's causing it. So I'm going to try and get stuck into it. I'll do a little bit of video in and around it and underneath it. Obviously, the point of having all of these cars is to enjoy them. As we know, it's kind of getting to the day and age now where so many countries already, but like 2025, no petrol cars, and everything's going to be electric, and no more diesel cars and stuff like that. So despite the fact that people have been saying that electric is the future and whatnot, for a number of years, now it's actually beginning to happen, So I think it's a good time for people to be taking these sort of cars that are really special and spending time and energy on them. So, I mean, and that's the central focus of what we do. That's our thing. So, you know, we borderline, I guess you would call us a restoration service. I mean, that's what we are. So, you know, this particular car is exactly, it embodies exactly what, you know, our dry ice cleaning service can do for a car. You know, it's not too far gone. It doesn't have any rust, which is unbelievable for a German car of its age. You know, it doesn't have any rust. It doesn't have any huge, you know, body issues. It doesn't even have a hit. Like, there's not even a dent in the car. Well, there's a small one in the back quarter, but that's, you know, to be expected. It's like, you know, tiny. So, yeah, otherwise, I mean, it's the perfect example of how you can bring something as special as this back into, you know, running order and having it the way that it was intended, you know, by the engineers of Germany. Obviously, this was the day and age when German cars were built to last. So, and obviously this one has stood the test of time. You know, there's a couple of things. It is leaking like a sieve at the moment, but that's probably from the rocker cover, which we're going to take off to do the valve adjustment anyway, so we'll be able to two birds with one stone. Has a small exhaust leak in the muffler, but it's a pinhole, so I'll be able to sort that out too. So I guess I'll just get under it. So it also serves as a record for us to see what condition we got it in, and step by step as we go through, you know, and restore and fix up bits and pieces, you know, where the end product ends up being. You know, we've got a couple of things on the go, you know, like the DRZ, the supermoto in the background. You know, that's on the go too. Got some plans for that. But in the order of urgency, obviously, there's a couple of small mechanical niggles that I want to get sorted out, so I can drive this car comfortably and know that, you know, I'm not hurting it or anything like that. But yeah, there it is. I mean, the E28 is pretty special shape. This was kind of when BMW was heading towards more of, you know, electronic stuff as opposed to mechanical injection and stuff like that. So this particular car has a full-blown ECU. You know, it's closely related to a modern injected car as opposed to its you know, mechanically injected counterparts. So this was BMW's attempt to do, you know, long gearing and you know, super economical cars to lead the future into more economy, because this was, you know, post the oil crisis in the 70s. So they wanted to make sure that they were getting nice big cars to America and other markets, but making sure that they were conscious of efficiency or economy. So yeah, it's one of those cars that really, like, it's kind of one of those turn of the century cars that really, like, started to shape the direction of cars going the way they are now. And, you know, you fast forward, this is an 87, so you fast forward however many years to where we are now, and, you know, Paris and London are banning petrol cars and stuff before 2025, I think. So it was a really, really sharp curve where they went from, you know, being concerned about power and XYZ to, you know, being more concerned about economy and stuff like that. And obviously the environmental impacts came a little bit later on, you know, in the 2000s. But for the most part, I mean, these were the cars that really did shape the way for, you know, the concerns of the consumer about consumption and stuff like that. So it mightn't be the raciest or whatever. It mightn't be the most engaging BMW of its era. I mean, all of the BMWs from this era, though, they all drive so well. Like, this thing drives, I mean, it's so cliche, but it drives better than some of the, you know, the modern cars that I've driven of late anyway. But super comfortable and nice. It just plots along, heaps of torque, and obviously it doesn't make a great deal of power, but it makes good torque. And yeah, it kind of just plots along and does its thing. So yeah, it's not one of those racy, it's not a 535, it's not an M535 or whatever, but you get the understanding, you get the feeling of what they were doing back then and the way that they did their cars then, you know, and you get a good feeling of what it would be like to have, you know, maybe a higher revving, you know, 528E or something like that, 528i, sorry, or something like that. So it is special in many ways. Every car has a story, and, you know, we appreciate every car for what they are. That's why I've got such a, you know, a huge variety of things, from, you know, small naturally aspirated 4 cylinders to supercharged V8s, turbocharged 6 cylinders, and likes the lot. So we love everything here, but, you know, every car has a story, and this particular one has, you know, some pretty cool history behind it, and it's been well looked after. So despite the fact there's no rust that we need to cut out, there's no like really hardcore restoration work that we need to do, but that's also, you know, good in a way because it allows us to kind of do, you know, those small little touches that really bring it back. And I think would do the previous owner proud because he spent a lot of time, energy with this particular car, and it's been part of his life. So we're going to do right by him, we're going to do right by the car. We're not going to go crazy with it. We are going to do some wheels because we kind of have to. It's, yeah. So we're going to do some wheels. We'll do a Zender front lip, Zender tail, boot spoiler, and you know, get rid of that tow bar because we don't need a tow bar. And then it'll look the key. So anyway, first things first, I've got to get stuck into these particular niggles that I've got to get sorted today, and then I'll get under the car and get some shots so you guys can see where it's at now, and you know, when we do some work on it, you know, so we can get that wow factor going. But yeah, let me get stuck into it. All right, so having a look underneath, there's obviously quite an active oil leak, but you know what they say, if it's not leaking oil, it doesn't have any in it. Which is pretty typical. I mean, the car's quite a couple of years old. These seals, they dry out. I mean, if they're not being, you know, if the car's not being driven often enough, you know, that'll begin to happen. So, I mean, it's not that there's more work than we thought there was going to be. We expected that it'd probably be something to this effect, to be honest. So, yeah, we have no qualms with the fact that there is some work to be done. I mean, but otherwise, look at that, old school Coney shocks. Yeah, otherwise, I mean, it's in relatively good condition, mechanically speaking. You know, these things are just a small gasket and a lot of time. So, yeah, I guess we'll get to the bottom of all of those leaks and stuff like that, and then we'll get all of that shining the way that it was intended from Bavaria. And yeah, everything will be nice and good. But otherwise, nothing unexpected, to be honest. I don't think there was anything that looks out of place to me in the way of, you know, in the way of mechanical problems or body damage or anything like that at all. Pretty typical wear and tear down here, but you know, looking at that sort of body panel area where all of this sort of bedliner sort of stuff is, that's going to come up really nice. And I mean, and that's in relatively good condition as it is. I think that's been made by our good friend Carmela. So yeah, looking at this, I think this is all very typical, and I'll get this sorted out. Geez, doesn't look great. To the untrained eye, this looks like a disaster. What have you bought? But it's really not that bad. I've had worse. I've had BMWs that are newer that are worse than this. And as you can see, they already started adding 1 million suspension arms by the early 80s. So yeah, let's have a look at a couple of other things, but otherwise nothing unexpected here, so to speak. Nice to see that it's still got some factory mud flaps on there, and they're going to come out excelente. So I'm going to do a couple of photos while I'm under here as to serve a couple of befores, and then obviously we can compare those directly with the afters. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to this because I know the potential that this car has is going to be, yeah, is going to be one to be remembered. So just do a little bit of work on find out what's going on with that tow bar. Get that tow bar out. I will, while I'm waiting for the engine to cool down so I can do the valve clearances, I am going to attack the exhaust leak, which I think is literally right there. Oh, too bright, sorry. I think is literally right there. So anyway, so having had a look underneath it, it all looks relatively okay. Surprised to find that it has a limited slip differential, which is pretty cool. Not that this is the thing for doing skids and stuff, but you know, it's good to have an LSD. I find cars that have LSDs, they just drive a little bit better. So anyhow, yeah, so I've got quite a bit of cleaning up to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to control, you know, the active leak at the moment, as in just clean it up and stop it from kind of weeping down and everywhere. And then I'll work on the valve adjustment, run through that exhaust, get that exhaust sealed up. And yeah, get stuck into that valve cover, which might reduce some of this. I'm starting to believe that it is a rear main seal leak though, just from the volume of oil and where it's kind of pulling up. But there's a good chance that it could just be, you know, getting pushed back from, once it's being driven, you know, it's getting pushed back through, all the way through to the bell housing and whatnot. So either way, it is what it is. Gonna guess I can do some work on this, and yeah, I guess that'll probably wrap up for this time, and if there's anything else I've got to talk about. Otherwise, I mean, it's just business as not usual, because we're in a lockdown and we can't necessarily do the things we'd like to do. We can't have customers through. But given our bracket, we work within an automotive restoration space. It gives us the ability to at least work with closed doors and stuff like that. So privileged to be able to be doing this while everything is the way that it is. But yeah, I guess this is, like I said in my Instagram stories, I think this would be a good time for me to make some content that you guys can follow along on YouTube and whatnot. So yeah, anyway, I guess at this stage, given that it's probably going to be my first vlog style video, if you enjoyed the video, consider like, sharing and subscribing. Well, like I always say, well, don't do whatever you want to do. Alrighty, so I started the valve adjustment on the E28, and everything was going swimmingly. All of the adjustments, I mean, some were out quite a bit, some weren't so bad, some were acceptable, and the wear on the cam all the way through was okay. It was only until I got to maybe, I don't know, maybe cylinder 4, cylinder 5, that I noticed that as one of the lobes was coming through, the center had actually been completely chewed out right at the top of the cam. So there was, you know, side on, the, you know, profile of the cam looks fine, but right in the center of it, it's actually, as it rounds off right at the top of the lobe, it's got a step, like it's squared off right at the top. So I've never seen anything like that before, and a couple of people I spoke with as well had also never seen anything like it. So yeah, really strange how that was worn, but obviously that would explain the significant top end noise that this car had when we were checking it out. When I was having a look at it, I could hear the valve train noise. It was pretty significant, and I thought, oh look, it's probably just out of adjustment, pretty bad, you know. M20s, they tick. If they're not ticking, they're not running. So I thought, oh look, it'll be within reason. And yeah, like even with the adjustments, up until the point that I got to that lobe, you know, they all were giving indications that this would have been a noisy valve train. But then yeah, obviously we got to that one, and that was the end of it. So I'm hoping to source a cam locally, and that might, fingers crossed, fingers, toes and everything else crossed, that will be able to happen tomorrow. We might be able to get a cam, do a bit of a click and collect, and go get a cam from Peninsula BM. But it is what it is. I'm hoping to at least get that new cam dropped in. If I can get that cam dropped in and everything works out well, then we can get the car mobile again, because it is, as you can see, right in the middle of the workspace and where the hoist is. So the last thing we want to do is have to, you know, push and pull this thing out all the time. So fortunately we are in a lockdown at the moment, and you know, we can have clients, but we're choosing not to have clients at the moment, and that gives us space to get through some of these unexpected turns that you get when you start playing with old European cars. Look, I'm still enjoying the process. I'm always enjoying the process, sometimes a little bit less than others, but I'm done hurting about it. It is what it is. It's I mean, now it's actually quite funny when you look at it, because it's like no other thing I've ever seen before. So it's such a strange thing. It does boggle my mind, however, how the car's still running. I mean, it does have a hunting idle, but that's a whole different thing. It's just amazing. The car runs, it idles, and like it runs as if everything is fine. So it just goes to show how much you know, redundancy, I guess, is there in that valve train system. So, but that's where we're at with it. So hopefully there's some progress tomorrow. Whether or not we incorporate that into this particular video, we'll see how we go. But yeah, that's where we're at today so far. So onwards and upwards.